Limitations or abilities. In a lesson, when you're teaching with somebody else, a lot of information regarding advice goes back and forth between the team members teaching a class. And so often I find that I'm being advised on a certain student or a group's limitations on what they cannot perform in an English task rather than what their abilities are. Now, their communicative abilities are unknown at this point, but in when I go into a class where I'm going to teach a group of students that I don't necessarily see every week, and I've prepared a speaking task, I don't really know whether they can perform it. I can base uh, how it will come out, uh, well, I mean, based on what works for other classes, but I really don't know. It's an unknown factor, and many times I have people kind of interrupt a certain part of a task I'm trying to accomplish by telling me, oh, the students can't do this, or they haven't done this yet, or they don't really understand this and that. And I know that's trying to be helpful, but it really isn't, because when I'm co-teaching with a Japanese teacher, when I'm outside of the classroom, the teacher is teaching a different type of English. And one thing I've learned in nearly 20 years of teaching in Japan is a student's English academic proficiency does not necessarily match their speaking proficiency. There are some students who are not motivated to read and write and learn all the different rules of grammar, yet they want to speak, and they want to learn how to communicate. They want to say funny things. I mean, sometimes it might be learning to say "fuck you," but yeah, I don't teach that. Uh, there, but then there are students who are very, very high academically in English, doing well on their tests, that simply they just don't know how to communicate. And so there's really no way of knowing for sure whether a student can perform it or cannot. So if I'm co-teaching with someone, I really do not prefer to hear about their limitations because, quite frankly, the teacher doesn't know what their limitations are. And when I'm trying to communicate with a student, it might be just a question. Um, at that point, I'm trying to connect with the student, and I'm trying to train myself how to communicate with the student. I'm in training myself. Um, I'm watching the student. I'm deciding whether I'm going to speak slower. I'm kind of trying to figure out whether, well, should I be doing this type of activity with the student? Are they ready for it? And the only way really I can find out is if I jump in and do it. But I always have to be very conscious of the fact that I do have to change my activity. I have to modify my speaking. And it's really not going to be any help for uh, the other team teacher to be telling me that the students can't perform this. They might be right, but they really don't know from the beginning. So my advice to team teachers, when you're working with someone, let's try to have the attitude of let's find out what they can do. Let's see what they might be able to do, rather than some false idea of limitations. Because if you do limit the students, uh, and you go in believing that the students cannot do something, it's almost certain they can't, because you're not going to be going in with the right attitude. Keep in mind that I have no motivation whatsoever to jump into an activity and try to say something to a student when when I'm positive that they will not be able to respond. I have no interest in that whatsoever. So it's it's a process for me too, but I just have to do it.